In the last few days, no, not for days, a while, we've been using this product that I get from Brodax, and I've given a phone number several times, and here's the whole point. In the middle of doing this, several people, including Mark, have asked me for a little tutorials on how to use this to do carbon fiber. It's also useful for several other things, and I'm going to explain some of them now. I just ran across a situation on these motor parts, and let me just explain this. Here's what happens with cyanoacralate. This is John Pothier, my good friend, asked me to give a little information, and I see sometimes, because I'm not a professional teacher or anything, I just forget that maybe some people don't know what this is. Well, it's used in modeling, model airplanes, all modeling, even model railroading, and it's what you would call, what most people would call crazy glue, except this is a premium grade. Now, what happened? It's about 10 bucks for a 2-ounce jar. Now it comes in actually comes in about 10 different varieties, some for plastic, some that doesn't melt plastic, but the ones that we use come in, there's actually a middle one, medium. This is blue is thin, the maroon is thick. We've used the thick to do carbon fiber work, and that's excellent, by the way. The blue, which is the thin, is used for a lot of things, but one thing, the blue is capillary. Capillary means that when you have a surface with a microscopic one molecule crack, it goes down in there and gets a good grip. So by being capillary, what it allows us to do, and by the way, I'll just mention, when you want to make the glue accelerate and the joint quicker, you can use kicker, but it's always best if you use a minimum amount. What'll happen, if you put a big glob of thick on and hit it with kicker right away, it just turns to a chalky, popcorny kind of material. Now, we started off this, I want to mention this, I know several of my friends that have CA already and are working on stuff. And we're coming up on the winter when everybody's working on motorcycles. These parts, we originally looked at these parts, they've already had several repairs. So, and the objective is for Vlad anyway, we wanted to bring these up to brand new specification. I'm sure the parts are available at some astronomical price, which almost everything that comes from Italy is, especially the pizza. But here's the point. We originally knew that there was going to be an issue with these. There's a problem. They were cracked. They have broken tabs. There were pieces missing. And when I did some of these repairs, this has all been repaired carbon fiber and aluminum. Several of the pieces had little chunks missing. I put a countless amount of hours into this already. But you want to do all that work before you do the cosmetic. This is now, all the structural stuff is done. These parts probably will be a lot solider than they were. But I'm thinking one of the things that would be really good is all of the bolts that hold these on, to make them hand tight with a drop of blue Loctite, not to tighten them down. I think part of why a lot of these parts crack, number one, they're plastic and it's super, super thin. This is probably half the thickness of some motorcycles that I've worked on. The parts are very flexible. They're very rubbery and plasticky. Again, you know, this is a very high-end motorcycle. So in trying to salvage these parts, one of the things we're going to do is everywhere there's a crack, I fixed it from the back. But if you look at this real close, you can still see the crack. Well, now what I'll do is carefully open that crack up if I can. In this case, I can't really do it, but it doesn't matter even if I don't open it up. What I'm going to do is take a little bit of this CA. I'm wondering if I can do this. I'm wondering if I can do this on a little bit closer close-up. 1 second. Steven Spielberg doesn't have this problem. He just calls up some assistant and says, do it. Get the dinosaurs in line or something. Well, we don't do that. You know, we're just trying to share information. The purpose of these videos is just to share information. We all love these. This is not an old motorcycle. These expensive motorcycles. All motorcycles. All things. You can use this technology to repair a lot of stuff. I've repaired a lot of Karen's antiques that she collects. I've repaired her dolls. This is priceless material once you get used to using it. Now because it's thin, want to let it sit for a second. It's capillary, it's going in. When I wipe it, I don't want to stop wiping it. If I stop, this will get glued to the part. So what I'm doing, I'm just constantly moving around, moving around, moving around. Give this about 10 seconds. It'll build up a little bit of a residue on the outside, but some has already gotten into that crack. Now, an ordinary sanding block, and again, I have to do this for what's going to amount to be a lot of hours of work, and a lot of material, by the way. A job like this, you can use up a lot of this material, and it's, like I said, it's $10 for 2 ounces, but the good news is that the parts you repair almost never break. I mean, you really have to have some heavy-handed bolt tightening before you're going to break a part that's fixed with carbon fiber and CA. Again, not impossible, but I certainly think you stack the deck. Now, what I always do, with rubber gloves on, your hands are very sensitive to where there's a little spot right there. It's not flat. The block makes it flat. Again, we originally started this out thinking, oh yeah, I thought anyway there'd be 8-10 hours of body work. There's probably more like 40 hours of body work here. But the point is, we can salvage these parts. We can make them better than when they were new. And ultimately, it'll be a whole lot cheaper than replacing them. We're going to try to salvage that decal, by the way. I'm going to try to show that at some future video. Now that, for all purposes, that's a real nice solid. You cannot feel that at all. And I know because the capillary material is down in there. Now, here's, again, this is a spider crack. A spider crack means somebody tightened that bolt too tight. It pulled it in and it broke like a clock. Well, we've sanded it. Now I can't sand it perfectly flat because I'm going to make this material so thin it's going to be like paper. But what I do is I get as much of it done as I can with the block. It needs to be rough, it needs to be clean. This material works best when things are kind of rough to your fingertip touch. Now I really can't feel those spider cracks, but I guarantee you if I didn't do this, they're repaired from the back, but not from the front. You can't get that last little bit. This is where this material, and I'm going to try just to show this in real time, not one of these fake things on the internet. I don't know why, but last night I got bored after Karen already had gone to sleep, and I started watching videos on how to spoke motorcycle wheels. Well, why? And I'm always looking at other people's videos, trying to make mine a little better, or more fun anyway. And some of them are way better than mine because these people have equipment. I have a very low budget on this, no budget at all. You see, you can immediately go into this with sanding. It's so nice that there's no waiting time like there is with epoxy. And I try to use a block as much as really possible. Now, when I go back and do this, as soon as I feel, oh, I can still feel that. Huh? You can do this 100 times. But that because it's capillary, the whole secret to this material is it's capillary. And what I'll do at some future, I don't know when, because we're so busy with work here, I will do a full demo video of how to use CA using wood, plastic, steel, aluminum, glass. Each thing requires a little bit different preparation, but because I've used it basically for since the product was developed, many years, I've picked up a lot of little tricks and tips. This is one of them, and my goal as always is to share the information so people like Mark Morgan can repair their own fairings and I don't have to do it for them. So it's kind of self-centered. Oh wow. See, when I get to this point, I'm always very, very happy. Now I know that will not crack. That will not crack unless somebody runs up to it with a sledgehammer or somebody puts a bolt in there. Now, here's another thing. There's always a trick for everything. Getting in here and maintaining that curve. I see there's pieces, little chunks missing. Well, it just happens I have this roll of sticky back paper that's almost exactly the right diameter. And by constantly moving it around, I can get most of that shape out. Once I get most of that shape out, and I see there's still just a little bit of a, and by the way, if you ever get this on your hands, it can ruin your whole day. One of the things it can do that I've had it do when I was careless about it, it glues your fingernail to your finger. And you think that's not a big deal until you wash your hands and you go, something's wrong, and you start picking away at it, and all of a sudden you realize you've glued your fingernail to your hand. Everybody that builds model planes knows what that feels like. But again, what this is, some people that I know, modelers, have called this kind of technology crossover technology, that you can use in one sport or hobby and it's adaptable to another sport or hobby. And because most of the model airplane stuff is ultra high quality, it's not the grade you would normally buy in Lowe's or Home Depot or something. Now here's a good example of something that really is worth doing. This is, when you look at it, this repair here, I sanded this very carefully with a block because I have a curve coming in and a curve going up. And I really wanted to get that perfect. I was very fussy about it. But of course, now that I have the shape I want, the shape is perfect. I don't want it to crack. So again, good old cyanoacralate. Give it a second or two. And of course, some people don't want to do this kind of stuff. They just, rather pay somebody else to do it. It's fine, and that's a whole nother issue. We don't deal with that now. But here's the other issue. Once that kicks off, which is relatively quick, I can just get it rough shape, do the final shape with my little block. And what happens is it just takes time. This kind of stuff, it's a question of just taking time. There's just no big heavy grinder thing you can do. It's all hand labor. It's all a sanding block. It's 100 sheets of sandpaper a panel, but what happens is at the end you have something to replace this panel. Good luck. And a lot of times when you replace it, it comes in, the paint doesn't match, or the holes, they made two models and these holes go here, and who knows what. But I know this will result in springtime coming. This bike will be bolted together, and I think it'll be a showstopper. But I don't want to have in the final product any problem with this. Now, one of the problems Vlad had, these two pieces come together on the bottom, and you can see somebody riveted this. I didn't do this. They riveted a piece of aluminum. I carbon fibered over it. So now what I'm going to do is by hand block sand as much of this down, get rid of all these cracks. There's a crack here, a crack here. You would think it's a labor of love doing this. Believe me, this is the kind of thing, if you start this, you quickly see how much work is involved in it. Now, and in fact, I have a better idea. I'll just block sand this off camera, but I'll show what I did to the other part. And I think that'll be more productive to the people that watch this. Let's hope somebody watches it. Now, what's happened is we're rearranging the cellar here. I had a big piece of exercise equipment, which I've done to rehab my shoulder. My two shoulders are perfect now. And hopefully Aaron's going to pick that up pretty soon, but we got it out of the way. I made my big table to lay out parts here, which I have to move everything when the baby gets here. So you can see what I have is 3 full tables of 3 parts. I actually have some in the garage. This is a part I worked on yesterday. Did a lot of work up here. This is probably 2 or 3 hours to get that right. You see that little crack up there? That'll get CA'd in the final, when we do the final painting. But all of these parts, this one I did, this will get sanded out. There's that they're really good quality Bondo. I don't want to have the Bondo any thicker than a piece of paper though on that. Some of these parts are just going to be a labor of love.